This is from Marianne Williamson, and this is called A Way In. It's a sort of prayer. I see in my mind a little ball of golden light. I watch this light as it begins to grow larger and larger until now it covers the entire inner vision of my mind. I see within this light a beautiful temple. I see a garden that surrounds the temple and a body of water that flows through the garden. I see that the inside of the temple is lit by the same beautiful golden light, and I am here, for I have been drawn here by the power and in the presence of God. I now dedicate my days and my relationships and my experiences to God. May living spirit which is within me so guide my thoughts, my feelings, my perceptions of all things, that I might grow into a happier, more peaceful, more loving human being. Illumine my mind, illumine my life. Amen. And now it is. And so the message this week is actually called The Joy of Becoming. And the message the theme for December is called The Journey of Becoming. And the theme for the entire 2021 year has been Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. And today's contributors are Cheryl Bell and Lydia Joy Ayers. Cheryl is from the Las Vegas Center for Spiritual Living, and Lydia Joy Ayers is from Universal Spirit Center. And this a monthly context is that this is a time to listen. It's a time to listen to that still small voice. And it's also a time and a season to give yourself over to the mystery. And the mystery that I refer to is that mystery of being, that mystery of the ultimate reality of which you and I are a facet. And the theme for this week, the joy of becoming, is really kind of interesting in that how many of you, me included, really feel a joy while we are in the midst of anything, right? So in the busyness of my life, of your life, are you really consciously aware that there is a joyful revelation, there is a joyful expansion, that your heart and your mind and your soul are growing, even if you're not so conscious of it? But the exhortation of this week's message is to become more conscious of that joy, that you are becoming more of who you are. I'm reminded of the Ricky Byers song called More of Who You Are. And it is really a refrain of more of the God, more of the good of who you are. Now, as you're usually called to be not something less or worse than where you are, usually called to be something better, something newer, something fresher. And as you become more aware of your godness, your goodness, and that is something that you already are at your essence. At your essence, you are pure spirit. And this journey is one of becoming more of that pure spirit. So as that occurs to you, that you are consciously taking a step to become better, part of that process is to graciously integrate your life experience. So everything in your life that has occurred has led you to this point of awakening, one way or another. And so as you're moving to what's next, the next step in your life, the next step in this day, the next step in this moment, it's important to integrate, to pull all of the good in that's come before you. So that is building your own, that is living off your own spiritual resume, so to speak, your curriculum vitae, metaphysically speaking. It's also important to know that you stand on the shoulders of those who came before you. To a certain extent, you are their dreams fulfilled. And if you so choose to be awake, alert, and aware, you feel this kind of joyful expectancy as you reveal more of who you are. So you are living spirit, and therefore the loving, the caring, the sharing, the connecting, the circulating through this human phase of your soul's journey is a kind of blessing to yourself and a blessing to the world. So in effect, as you choose to become more, you integrate everything up to this point, you stand on the shoulders of spiritual giants and you bless the world as you are blessed. And so I will take you right to the closing affirmation. I enjoy the revelation of God. I enjoy the revelation of God. So just to unpack this theme a little more, the CSL has a vision and a mission similar to ours as the function of our greater community, of our greater organization. And therefore, the message and the themes are all tied into that global vision that we share with our denomination. So in the context of this month and this week's message, you envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence. And you envision humanity discovering the creative power of thought. You envision humanity being a world where each and every person is able to discover his or her own personal power. And each person discovers that they have the ability to create this magnificent life that works within a world that works for everyone. Everyone can have that dream, and it collectively builds a world that works for you and me and all beings everywhere. In the science of mind, there are 10 core concepts, and the core concept that resonates most strongly with this week's message is that heaven is a state of awareness of your true nature, of your goodness, of your godness. So you experience heaven, this goodness, this godness, to the degree that you become conscious of it. So you're actively seeking to know and celebrate this goodness, this godness in every person, place, and thing. You also know that this goodness, this godness, this essence of your being, which is pure spirit, that's attainable by all. And there is kind of a beauty and a calm confidence, and in science of mind speak, calm confidence is one of the definitions of faith. But there is a beauty and a faith to realizing that as you get more aligned with or more attuned to a life lived with God always at hand, that there is in that consciousness, in that revelation, that realization, that the good of God is ever present and activating through you. So this present moment, as are all present moments, a culmination of every moment that has come before you. And Ernest Holmes says this better, but God is not becoming to or for you. God is, and you are activating more God and more good. So in the science of mind, Ernest Holmes says, you're not becoming this life, but are now in and of this life. There is no other life. God is not becoming, God is. And God is not growing, God is complete. God is not trying to find out something, God already knows. And elsewhere in the science of mind, Ernest Holmes says, the mind of man is some part of the mind of God. Therefore, it contains within itself unlimited possibility of expansion and self-expression. So there's a song that we sing at my home church at North Hollywood called, I am part of the great mind of God. God is love, God is peace, God is all there is. So I am part of the great mind of God. And Ernest goes on to say Learn to be still and let the truth, the capital T truth, speak through you. To be still and know that the inner light shines. You know, the expression of the divine as you and as me is here and now. And it is a best experienced or most powerfully experienced in each moment that you can really dig into that perception, and that awareness. And, you know, God pours itself through all of its creation. I'll say that again. God is the clay, the sculptor, and the work of art. So this moment is God, as is the next and the next and the next. Your being in this moment is a necessary part of the unfolding of the divine. So take each and every moment you can to really drink all that in, to really just be in the presence, the power, the love, the intelligence, the full compassion of God, moment to moment, right here and right now. And all that is some frequency, phase, and amplitude of living spirit. Therefore, you have the power and the resources to grow in your goodness, to expand your godness. You know, on some level, you and I are always living spirit. It's really just the degree to which our consciousness is really attuned, resonating with that living spirit. So it's okay to just rejoice, to be joyful in the heartfelt knowledge that any more good that comes into your conscious awareness, it's already set up in the mind of God. And therefore, it's already set up in your local mind. And to the degree that you open to it, it manifests and demonstrates when and as you're ready for that next step in consciousness. You know, Marianne Williamson recently revisited this idea of magical thinking versus miracle-mindedness. I love this comparison, this kind of juxtaposition of the two. You know, and magical thinking is a really close relative to wishful thinking. Being able to sustain, to have some consistent experience of my magical or wishful thinking, I have not had much success with that. However, it does have an important part to play in yours and my metaphysical growth and expansion. So we're in this season of many holidays and obviously a seasonal shift. And the idea of the holidays of the season bring up some similar themes. One is that it's a magical time of year. Another is that there is a miracle unfolding. You know, the folklore and mythology that this season evokes are really rich with the themes of magic and miracle and light. You know, about a week or so ago, the Jewish faith tradition concluded their Hanukkah celebration, and that's described as a miracle of the lights. Diwali, somewhat prior, sometimes lands this time of year. This year it happened to be sort of October-ish, was a festival of lights. So in the Northern Hemisphere, the solstice really marks that transition from longer nights and shorter days to shorter nights and longer days. And there is something mystical and magical and miraculous all at the same time about that. So to think about some of the activities of the season leads us into a lot of this magical and miraculous thinking, reading. You know, just imagine this tradition where we put up all kinds of decorations to remind ourselves about the mystery and the magic of the season, both inside and outside. Heck, we even bring a tree into our homes and decorate the tree. We decorate with a lot of lights. There are a lot of special foods. Some of us use a special calendar for this time of year. We exchange gifts and we have special gatherings, both secular and sacred. And in the midst of that, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle, as is often described this season. It's easy to be so engrossed in doing that the joy of the moment gets missed. And so Eckhart Tolle reminds us, and he calls this in holy waiting. He says, all your attention is in the now. You are present with your whole being, every cell of your body in the now. So it is only now that you are truly yourself. So one of my favorite examples of the magic of the season is this whole mythology around gifts being delivered by this magic person from the uninhabitable North Pole in a flying sleigh propelled through the night sky by 8 or maybe 9 reindeer. And you receive gifts according to how you have been judged on the naughty nice spectrum, right? And that you expected to leave the magic gift person and the reindeer some snacks, as a sort of thank you for their incredible, fantastic feats, right? And I can just remember at many points in my life, long beyond childhood, of really being swept up with that magic and that mythology. Wow, there's just something on the material world that's really, really shifting and really changing. And it is a form of, this powerful magic. I'll say it's childlike in its power. It really can become very captivating even to adults. Gets adults' attention as well as children's attention, this whole folklore and mythology, the ritual and celebration of this season. And it is opening to the realm of the possible. That's what this magical thinking does, right? In the most positive and constructive sense, magical thinking is opening to the realm of the possible. The magical thinking is a spark of creativity. And for our purposes, it is the vision that you catch. And it really, in a metaphysical and a science of mind sense, it is your local mind opening to the divine mind in a way that is really particular to you, right? It is the evolution of your soul through this human phase. And therefore, both magic and miracles mean that there's something new and there's something changing. It's usually something good or something for the better, even if we may not know fully the impact of its goodness or its being better. Now, magic, if it's just left to chance, magical thinking, wishful thinking, if that's just left to chance, it really has little power to transform, to have some lasting positive impact. But it can be that starting point for the next phase of your spiritual evolution. Remember in the process of the great gift giver from the North that kids often write a letter to the great gift giver of the North, specifying what kind of gifts that gift giver ought to bring. So even as a child, we're not leaving the process completely to chance. So the distinction here is that, magical thinking is kind of fleeting, but if it's taken in and really processed, if it's really taken to a deeper level, that's where miracle-mindedness takes over. And that's where that miracle-mindedness becomes a function of consciousness and spiritual practice. So I'll just remind ourselves what spiritual practices are available. And this is just a short list. There are certainly others, but meditating on a regular basis, treating or praying or affirmative. And I have a little box here today that says personal, positive, present tense, and powerful. So an affirmation is constructed around those 4 P's, and I'll give you some examples in a minute. Doing some form of spiritual study or reading, journaling to further your spiritual growth, and of course visioning, catching that high idea for your life or your day or your family or your career or your finances or your relationships, and then just really catching the feeling tone of that high idea. And then being of sacred service, meaning just giving your time over to something that contributes to the greater good. Going to your spiritual counselor, your practitioner, is a form of spiritual practice. Giving as a spiritual practice, we practiced that earlier, and being a part of our beloved community, which you're all doing right now so beautifully. Now, what gives rise, what comes out of your spiritual practice is amplifying these qualities. And again, in Science of Mind speak, these are inward sensations that are positive and constructive, and we would judge them to be good, right? And those inward sensations are creative, and they are also the direct impress or the direct connection to spirit. So the first answer to any prayer is this feeling, this good feeling within, that shift from wherever you are in consciousness to a feeling of, say, peace or freedom or beauty or plenitude or harmony, right? And as those spiritual practices and those qualities are amplifying in your life, that grows and it attracts you more to that spiritual practice. It puts you more in the joy of the moment. So to further distinguish between magical thinking and miracle-mindedness, I'm going to lay some binaries on you, so please accept them in the positive spirit in which they are given. But a miracle is a shift in consciousness, right? And it's a shift in consciousness from the dark to the light, from the negative to the positive, from the destructive to the constructive, ultimately from fear or separation to love and connection. So that is a miracle in a Course in Miracles sense, but it's also sort of amplified in the Science of Mind, that those shifts in consciousness are moving from something lesser in consciousness to something greater, from something less positive to something more positive, from something more loving and more peaceful and more joyous. And so magical thinking then is an opening to something greater. And that something greater then is nurtured through miracle-mindedness. So it is transforming that spark of magical thinking to a smolder, to a flame, to a fire, to a passion. So magical thinking really does have its place early on in this development of this unfolding, this revelation of God in your life. I use them all the time, and I use them with good effect. And I feel that the simpler they are, the more likely I am to repeat them. So these are the ones that are in your weekly email newsletter. I'm just going to read them to you really quickly, see which ones resonate. But these are in your emails, so you can come back to these and use them however you choose. I am positive energy and pure love. And notice how these are personal and positive and present tense and powerful. My soul is a sacred and unique expression of God. I am radiant light. I am one with infinite intelligence. My body is a high vibration of health and well-being. I am a whole and beautiful emanation of God. God's abundance circulates through every aspect of my life. I am a prosperous vessel of love. So one of the, I will say, concluding events of this season and its holidays is this ritual of starting a new year, right? And folks often make what we call resolutions, right? And as I've described, a resolution is kind of a form of magical thinking, right? And the magical thinking goes something along the lines of, well, we're incrementing up a year. 21 will be behind us. Now 22 is in front of us. And so that somehow cleans the slate. And by cleaning the slate, automatically my life becomes new and better. Now, as we know in the Science of Mind, that has to be converted, that magical thinking has to be converted into miracle-mindedness, a consciousness-raising effort, we'll call it. So one has to apply that New Year's resolution to spiritual practices. So that resolution's a great starting point. It is that spark for something greater in your life. And then you take that resolution and infuse it, amplify it, deepen it through meditation, through affirmation, through journaling, through spiritual study, through visioning, with the resolve that you're going to be better and you're going to do better. And through spiritual practices, you are being better and you are doing better. And the spiritual practice is part of the overt behavioral steps that you are taking as a function, let's say, of a resolution, of a New Year's resolution. You know, as we say in the Science of Mind, you must treat and move your feet. So the spiritual practices, again, move that magical thinking to miracle-mindedness. It primes your consciousness for a happier, healthier, more peaceful, more compassionate, and loving life. So I enjoy the revelation of God. So I invite you now just to turn your attention inward. Just to call that revelation of God to mind. Just feeling and sensing a presence, a power, an intelligence, a creativity, a compassion that is greater than anything known to this mind. And know that that compassion, that love, that intelligence, that creativity is everywhere and within. Every person, place, and thing is an emanation of living spirit. And knowing that is true, I know that therefore I am one of those emanations of living spirit. And what is true for me is true for all beings everywhere, that you too are one of those emanations of living spirit, that you and I are meditations in the mind of God. So I speak my word that this season is magical in its inspiration. It is magical in that divine spark that you and I now easily fan into a full flame of a passionate revelation of God, an expansion of the goodness of your life, of my life. I just feel and sense that warmth welling up within, knowing that is the presence of God expressing, experiencing, circulating, connecting more than it has in that previous moment. So there is a joy of revelation. I enjoy that revelation of God. You enjoy that revelation of God. It is indeed a joyous, heartfelt activity of this phase of our soul's journey. So blessing the world as we are blessed, blessing it with that joy and peace and love that this season evokes. I give thanks for this answered prayer. I give thanks for this connection and communion in spirit. And I lovingly and gratefully release it all into the law of mind and action, knowing that joy and that love and that peace are happening right now. It's unfolding for you right now. And together we say, and now it is. Thank you so much.